Information, please. Presented each week at this time by Canada Dry, famous the world over for its fine beverages. Wake up, America. Time to stump the experts and enjoy a cool, refreshing glass of Canada Dry ginger ale. Every week at this time, Canada Dry provides a board of 4 brilliant experts to see how they withstand the barrage of stumpers you've sent in. You may submit from 1 to 3 questions with the correct answers. For every question we use, whether or not it's answered correctly, the sender gets $5. And if your question stumps our board of experts, you not only get $10 more, but in addition you receive a complete 24-volume set of the most recent edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Mind you, this is only if your question stumps our board of experts. Our editorial staff may reword your question a trifle. Don't worry about it. Whenever there is a duplication of questions, Information Please uses the one that was submitted first. All questions become the property of Information Please and should be addressed to Canada Dry, 1 Pershing Square, New York City. And now may I present our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Clifton Fadiman, literary critic of the New Yorker magazine. Mr. Fadiman.
Ladies and gentlemen, Information Please, as I'm sure you know by now, is entirely spontaneous and unrehearsed. Tonight, the board consists of 2 regulars and 2 guests. Franklin P. Adams, conductor of the famous conning tower in the New York Post, and famous as the owner of the initials FPA. John Kieran, the sports authority who carries so much information around with him, it's a wonder he isn't round-shouldered. And we have 2 guests. One has been with us several times before and reappears by popular request, the erudite catcher for the Boston Red Sox, Mr. Mo Berg. And the other is that famous American humorist, playwright, and screenwriter, Mr. J.P. McAvoy. Now remember, for each question that's missed, Canada Dry rings up $10. And that's paid out to the sender, plus 24 volumes of Encyclopedia Britannica. Now, there's one special announcement, or rather a challenge that I'd like to make. Last week, for the first time in the history of Information Please, we had a perfect score. We did not lose anything in the way of Encyclopedia Britannicas or money, and the result has been that the Information Please experts have been rather hoity-toity and I think a little too proud of themselves during the last 7 days. And so I'm going to ask them tonight whether they care to accept a challenge. This is just for tonight. Instead of our having, as in many cases, 2 out of 3 questions to answer, are you willing to answer 3 out of 3 in every case? I think it's about time your pride was taken down. Mr. Adams, how about you?
I'd love it that way.
You'd love it that way.
Goes faster.
Mr. Kieran, all right with you?
Isn't my money. It's great.
All right. Mr. Berg?
I'll challenge him.
And Mr. McAvoy?
I think I'll try that.
All right, you better play along. Very well. In each case, then, they have to answer all of the parts of every question. The first question, coming from Maria Constantine of this city, tests a very specialized kind of knowledge, which I don't think you would have, Mr. Berg. Mr. Berg, are you married?
I am not.
You're not married. Mr. Berg is the only escapist in the party this evening. Now, each of the rest of you, is asked to qualify as an expert husband by giving us the dates of your wife's birthday. Not the year, just the month and the day, and the date of your wedding anniversary. Mr. McAvoy had his hand up first. Very eager, Mr. McAvoy, yes?
My wife's birthday is July the 9th.
July the 9th.
And the anniversary, December the 19th.
Very good. You got by if Mrs. McAvoy is listening and everything's okay. The McAvoys will remain united and happy for a while. Mr. Adams?
Mama was born on the 4th of June.
June 4th. How about the anniversary?
Practically yesterday. And we were married on May 9.
That's quite right, Mr. Adams. Very good. Mr. Kieran?
Well, I've got too many birthdays around the same early part of February, but I know my wife's birthday is around the 10th or 11th of February.
Make up your mind, Mr. Kieran.
I can't. I'll hear about this later, but I know we were married on May 14th. I have the papers to prove that.
Yes. But you wouldn't care to tell us whether your wife was born on February 10th or February 11th?
I'd like to tell you.
You know, 24 hours sometimes makes a good deal of difference. You sure about that? You're lucky she wasn't born on Thanksgiving, Mr. Kieran. Pick 10 or 11.
I'll pick 11.
Well, that's wrong. February 10th. February 10th. I don't know whether that's wrong or right. Seems to me that you messed that up for us, Mr. Kieran. You have to get the exact date. I'm sorry, but Miss Constantine is going to receive $10 and 24 volumes of the encyclopedia for a very clever and searching question.
You crook.
If Miss Constantine is listening, I should tell her that these dates, by the way, are not to be found as yet in the Encyclopedia Britannica. The next question, coming from Mr. A. Abramowitz of Arlington, Virginia, is a question about the law. Mr. Berg, you were once a lawyer among your spare extra avocations, weren't you?
I refuse to answer.
On the ground that it might incriminate.
By advice of counsel.
Mr. Kieran's acting as Mr. Berg's counsel this evening. What does a lawyer mean when he uses these terms? The first set of terms is immaterial, irrelevant, and incompetent. Now, Mr. Kieran had his hand up first.
He is referring to evidence which he wishes crossed out or not allowed to enter into the trying of the case.
That's quite right, but I'll ask you to define what he means by each of the words,
All
immaterial, irrelevant, and incompetent.
Immaterial has nothing to do with the issue.
Yes, not necessary or essential.
Yes.
Irrelevant.
Irrelevant. It is not pertinent to the questioning that is before the court at that particular time.
What would you say to that, Mr. Berg?
Who am I to judge and object to what
I
Mr.
think
Kieran
it's the
says?
same. I think those words overlap.
Pretty
as a
much
matter
the
of fact.
same, but I'm sure a lawyer could find a number of differences between them. Immaterial means not necessary or essential, and irrelevant means not supporting the issue. Now, to a legal mind, I'm sure those two words have nothing in common whatsoever. Now, how about incompetent?
Incompetent might mean that the witness was not the man to produce that or offer that in evidence.
That's right. The giving of evidence by the witness is proscribed for some reason or other. Or, Mr. Berg, were you going to add anything to that? Or that the evidence is inadmissible under the rules in which the case is being tried. Now, when a lawyer says exception, outside of wishing to irritate the judge, what else does he have in mind, Mr. McAvoy?
Well, he wants to make a record. He wants to put on the record that there is some reason for him later on to want to appeal the case, to appeal from the verdict to the...
That's right. He disagrees with the judge's ruling in order to establish a foundation for a later appeal.
That's much
now, I
better
believe,
said,
Mr. McAvoy?
You said that much better than I did.
Not at all, Mr. McAvoy. Still, that's very sweet of you. Courtesy doesn't count on this program, by the way. Now, in certain states, I believe in our own state of New York, it isn't necessary, in order to establish a foundation for appeal, to make exceptions. You can appeal in any case, I believe. Very well. Next question, coming from Harry D. Kimmelman of Brooklyn, New York, is as follows. Question about initials. What do the initials stand for in the following famous names? W.C. Fields, M.K. Gandhi, P.T. Barnum. W.C. Fields. There's no one who doesn't know the name of Mr. Fields, but do you know the initials? Mr. McAvoy.
William Claiborne, I believe.
It's a beautiful name, Claiborne.
I believe it is.
Yes, but it isn't Mr. Fields's.
Now, I think it will be after this.
Very possible. You might be able
it.
to sell it to him.
Yes.
It's, matter of fact, Mr. Fields has a lovely middle name. Claude. Claude. William Claude Fields. William Claude Fields.
I remember now.
I count you wrong on that, Mr. McAvoy. We require absolute precision this evening. M.K. Gandhi. M.K. Gandhi. Mr. Berg.
I know his first name is Mohandas.
Mohandas is right. And how about the K? Can anyone give us the meaning of K? It's Mohandas Karam Chand. Mohandas Karam Chand Gandhi, but he's usually known as what?
Mahatma.
Mahatma, Mr. Berg. What does Mahatma mean?
Mahatma is the old Sanskrit word meaning a great soul.
Yes. Would it be something like our use of the word saint, perhaps, or
I think so.
something somewhat similar to that? P.T. Barnum. P.T. Barnum. Mr. Adams.
Phineas Taylor Barnum.
That's quite right. And you were the only one, Mr. Adams, who knew the initials in both cases. Do you feel better?
Not
You're
much.
feeling- you were feeling all right
Bridgeport's
before.
got a Barnum exchange.
Oh, it's just local information to you.
That's all.
Mr. Adams, did you ever hear of a novelist who wrote rather cheap and exciting stories around the turn of the century who had 4 initials and then followed by her name? Very famous.
E.D.E.N. Southwood.
That's quite right. That's quite right. He reads my mind. E.D.E.N. Southwood. I bet you don't know what the E.D.E.N. stands for.
I looked it up once and I've forgotten.
Me too. I didn't even look it up. Well, we lose $10 and a set of Encyclopedia Britannica, courtesy of Canada Dry, to Mr. Kimmelman of Brooklyn, New York. I feel that you're considerably chastened this evening, gentlemen. Even Mr. Kieran doesn't look quite as cheerful as he did last week at about this time. The next question, coming from Mrs. Myra E. Swain of White Plains, New York, is a question about kissing. Kissing, gentlemen. Who kissed or was asked to kiss the following? A cup. And the second part of the question is me. And the third part of the question is a cow. Who was asked to kiss a cup? Mr. Kieran.
The one to whom Johnson wrote that little verse, or leave a kiss but in the cup.
Yes.
To Celia?
Yes, that's quite right. To Celia. Drink to me only with thine eyes, and I will pledge with mine, or leave a kiss but in the cup, and I will not look for wine. Mr. McAvoy, what were you going to say?
Kiss me again?
I beg pardon?
Kiss me again?
The me? Well, but who was it that kissed me?
Well, it was Fritzy Shep in a song.
Oh, she
Matter
was
of fact,
me.
she's of a different generation from me, but it would have been nice. Mr. Kieran.
Jenny kissed me.
Jenny kissed me. Who is Jenny and what
Leaping
poem?
from the chair, jumping from the chair she sat in. Jenny kissed me. And then, nice little verse.
Well, let's have it. There's no reason why you shouldn't let us have it.
I think
Mr.
it's
Kieran.
by a man named Spencer, if I'm
Lee
not
Hunt.
Lee Hunt,
Lee
as
Hunt.
Mr. Adams
Oh.
says. And can you quote the little poem in which Jenny kisses me? Or do you want me to do it for you, Mr. Kieran?
Say
Time,
that
you thief.
Want me to go on with it, Mr. Adams?
I wish you would.
we
yes.
love to put pretty things in your book. Put
Put
that
that in.
Say that
Well, this will be the first time that I can
Wilton
really
helped have
supply
left
the
me.
correct version, Mr.
Say
Kieran.
that I am growing old.
You'll get it
Say
among
that-
you.
Wealth and fame have missed me.
Yes? Say I'm growing old.
Say I'm growing old, but add.
Mhm.
Jenny kissed me.
Yes. Mr. Adams, you're an expert on light verse forms. That is very often known as one of the most famous triolets in English literature. Is it one?
Nothing of the kind.
No, it is a fake triolet. It isn't really a triolet at all. Some other time we'll go into
It's a
that.
fake rondo. It's got nothing to do with the trial.
No, not a bit. But people do say it is one, I think. Well,
Not
that
in
is
my
the correct
sect, they
answer
don't.
to me. Now, who kissed a cow? Who kissed a cow? Mr. Kieran.
the old lady.
Yes. What's the quotation?
Well, everyone to his taste, as the old lady said when she kissed the cow.
Yes, that's right. Or as the French put it, check on us on cow, Mr. Kieran. Very well. Now, that gives us 3 out of 3. Very good. Thank you for the correction, Mr. Kieran. The next one from F. Brown of Toronto, Canada, is about movies of the near past and present. Who directed the following movies? I think we hardly pay enough attention sometimes to the directors of movies in our anxiety to remember the stars of them. Who directed My Man Godfrey? Mr. McAvoy.
Gregory LaCava.
Gregory LaCava. And who directed what I am told I must pronounce Ninochka, though I believe the correct pronunciation is Ninochka.
Lubitsch.
Lubitsch. By the way, which is the correct pronunciation, Mr. McAvoy? You're an old Russian.
An old Russian pronounced it Ninochka. The new Russians pronounce it Ninochka.
Oh, it's awfully hard to tell the difference, isn't
Well,
it?
you can't tell the difference of the old Russians and the new Russians
No,
now
you
either.
scratch an old Russian and find a new Russian. Who directed The Informer?
Informer John Ford.
John Ford, that's right. 3 out of 3 for Mr. McAvoy. How long is it since you've been in Hollywood, Mr. McAvoy? Or is that a suntan that you've got from one of those lamps?
Well, I was out of the country for 3 years, and 2 of them spent in Hollywood.
Really? Well, considering your experience, you speak excellent English, Mr. McAvoy. The next question interests me particularly. We had as our guest of honor last week one who distinguished our program, Mr. James Foley, the Postmaster General of the United States, residing in New York and Washington and points in between. You can address him general delivery. And he sent in a question, which he suggested that we present to you gentlemen as an off-the-record question, but we're not going to present it as an off-the-record question. Canada Dry will contribute $5 or $15 if you muff it to the Red Cross, which is holding a drive this week, as you know. But if you do muff the question that Mr. Farley sends in, we're going to send them the Encyclopedia Britannica, which he will read in the next couple of weeks and so perhaps enable himself to come back as a return guest. Who ran on the ticket as vice president when President Taft ran for his second term? That's a sticker. Who ran on the ticket as vice president when President Taft ran for his second term? Now, if you don't know, I need hardly tell you that you may guess. The gentlemen are going back along the line of vice presidents now, looking very worried.
I can't even...
Was
Mr.
he ever
Adams?
a vice president before?
No. Or since? No. Very distinguished gentleman, but has never been a vice president. I'm sorry, gentlemen. I'll count to 3. 1, 2, 3. The answer is Nicholas Murray Butler, who was chosen to take the place of James S. Sherman when Mr. Sherman died during the campaign. That's a sticker of a question, rather difficult. A tribute to Mr. Fawley's ingenuity. $15, courtesy of Canada Dry, goes out to the Red Cross, and Mr. Fawley gets an Encyclopedia Britannica. Now, to coin an expression...
franked, or do you have to pay money for that, sending over the mail?
What, the Encyclopedia Britannica? I imagine he can arrange to get it French, Mr. Adams. Well, we find that Canada Dry has parted with $30 and 3 sets of the encyclopedia because of certain flaws in the intellectual equipment of our experts. And now here's Mr. Milton Cross, who never fails us.
Thank you, Mr. Fadiman. This is the time of year when the windows are yellowed with lamplight long before dinner is ready, and the rustle of empty stalks in the brown field, the farmer's loaded cart creaking toward the market, tell us that the now sleeping earth has once more presented its rich annual gift. Yes, the bountiful season is with us again, the indoor season of crackling fires and food in pleasant abundance. The gold-crested bottle of emerald green belongs on the autumn table, for Canada Dry Ginger Ale and good food have always been natural companions. Its flavor, bouquet, and pleasant warmth add to the joys of dining. Canada Dry also contributes to after-dinner comfort, because ginger ale is a pleasant aid to digestion. So, when you're filling your pantry with all the tasty foods of this bountiful season, be sure to order a generous quantity of Canada Dry, the champagne of ginger ale.
Mr. Cross, your cogent message to the housewife was delivered this time in exactly 60 seconds, 1 minute, 1/60th part of an hour. Now, gentlemen, the next question comes from T. Stewart of Kansas City, and it involves 3 words that may not be familiar to all of you. You can get together on this. Why might there be an imbroglio, over an intaglio in a seraglio? 3 hands up. Mr. Berg, why might there be an imbroglio over an intaglio in a seraglio? Would you mind explaining?
An imbroglio is an altercation or a dispute. An intaglio is a cameo or some little something like that.
Yes, that's right.
A seraglio is a harem.
Yes. A seraglio is a harem or harem, if you care to go native for a moment. That's right. So we might have a quarrel over a precious stone in a harem. Can you tell us what any of these words come from? Do you know what intaglio is derived from, Mr. Berg?
Well, imbroglio and intaglio are both Italian words,
yes.
I believe.
Yes. Intaglio is an interesting word. Mr. Adams?
Imbroglio is the same as embroilment.
I should think it would come from the same root. Though what the root is, I don't know. Intaglio, I think, comes from an Italian word meaning, Mr. McAvoy?
Engrave, I believe.
To cut. Tagliare, I think.
Tagliare.
And we get another word from it, tailor, yes. Which is one who cuts.
And also tally. When one tallies, he cuts a notch. Like scoring a run is a tally. That's
right.
taille.
And how about seraglio? Do you know how that word came to mean a harem or a place where the Sultan used to keep his wives or their equivalent? Mr. Adams? Well, there is a word I think also Italian, serrare, meaning to shut or bar. And in this case, the wives were barred in or shut off from the gaze of ordinary folk. Well, that's right. That's why there might be an imbroglio over an intaglio in a seraglio. Now, Mr. Adams, thanks for the castanet. Miss Carolyn Singer of this city sends in a question that tests your knowledge of Oriental customs. In formal Japanese society, which presumably all of you gentlemen have attended in the past, in formal Japanese society, what is the significance of a second cup of tea? Mr. McAvoy, our Oriental expert, suddenly developed.
Well, the second cup of tea in a business office means that it's the signal for you to leave.
That is exactly what it means. Yes. Well, do you have to leave before you drink the tea, or?
That is, you don't drink the tea. It's handed to you. And as they hand you the tea, that's the Eastern equivalent of handing you your hat.
You duck? What do we say what would be the American parallel for a similar situation, do you think?
Here's your hat.
Yes, here's your hat. Something of the sort. They're much more polite.
Give them the gate. Instead of the gate, it's...
Very good. Now, in India, have you been in India too, Mr. McAvoy?
Not recently.
Well, let's see if you can do what you can do with this one.
It's changed a lot since I was there.
No doubt. Things change when you leave them, Mr. McAvoy. In India, In India, if you saw a man dropping sugar outdoors, what would he be doing besides wasting his sweetness on the Indian air? Dropping sugar outdoors. What would he be doing? Could you explain that gesture?
No, I wish you'd move that to Japan and make it salt, and I could tell you.
Could you really? Go ahead. Go ahead. Suppose it were salt.
Put salt on the threshold of a house for good luck, and a very amusing reason, if you'd like to know.
Yes, I'd love to know.
In the old days, when the Lord visited his concubines, they weren't concubines those days, his second, third, and fourth wives.
Yes.
He would ride horseback. And the wife
the
wife who wished, well, he was there and wanted to get there in a hurry, you see. And his wife, the wife who wished to entertain that evening, would put salt on the doorstep. So the horse would stop with the salt, and the horse would stop with the salt.
I see. That's a very interesting. Now, gentlemen, I know that in India, if you saw a man dropping sugar outdoors, what would he be doing besides wasting the sugar? Well, the answer is he would be feeding the ants. He would be a member of an Indian religion, the Jains, as they're known, Jain, which is a sect known for its kindness to animals. So he would be feeding the ants. Now, in China, if a Chinese in public shields his face with a fan, what does that mean? Mr. McAvoy.
That is a polite way of saying that he doesn't wish to speak to you, that he is incognito, that he isn't really there. And you were supposed not to notice him.
Yes, he wants to be left alone. It's a Chinese garbo gesture. Well, that's 2 out of 3. But that's not enough for this evening, so Miss Carolyn Singer, courtesy of Canada Dry, gets $10 plus a set of Encyclopedia Britannica. Now, gentlemen, Miss Roberta M. Donaldson of Cleveland Heights, Ohio, sends a question in, testing your knowledge both of birds and of literature. I'm going to ask you to identify the following birds. What fantastic bird instigated and was the sponsor, the judge, and a runner in the same race? What fantastic bird instigated a race, was the sponsor of it, the judge of it, and a runner in it? Mr. Kieran.
The dodo.
The dodo in what book?
Alice in Wonderland.
In Alice in Wonderland, that's right. Do you remember the situation at all, Mr. Kieran?
I've forgotten. They all ran around. That's...
Yes, it was a caucus race. Remember, the parties were soaking wet from swimming through the pool.
That was the way to get dry.
That was the way to get dry. And the dodo set forth the rules, and he decided that everybody won.
That's right.
The nicest kind of race. What bird acted as a child's alarm clock? What bird acted as a child's alarm clock? Mr. Adams.
The birdie on my windowsill.
That's very correct. And where's it from, Mr. Adams?
Child's Garden of Verses.
Yes. By whom?
R.L. Stevenson.
Can you give us the lines more completely?
No, but it ends up, ain't you shamed, you sleepyhead?
Yes. A birdie with a yellow bill hopped upon the windowsill, cocked his shining eye, and said, "Ain't you shamed, you sleepyhead?" That's too right. What black bird could talk but had a very limited vocabulary? Mr. Adams.
The raven.
The raven, yes. Well, what did he say?
Nevermore.
Yes, and he occasionally said never. I think he said never once, and nevermore frequently. That was all he did say.
He quoted. He didn't say it. He quoted.
I beg your pardon. He quoted. Is that the present or the past of what verb would that be the past? To queef? I queef, you quote? Remember, Mr. Adams? I don't know. I don't know what the verb is. We'll probably learn tomorrow. The next question comes from Mary M. Hipple of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's a question about mythology. Name 3 characters of mythology who were changed into plants, and explain how. Mr. Kieran had his hand up at once.
Narcissus.
Narcissus. Can you tell us the story of Narcissus?
Yes. Narcissus admired himself so much, I think, that he fell overboard and was drowned in the pool where he was looking at his image.
That's right.
And it became a plant on the brink.
That's right. And he changed into the flower, which bears his name now. That gives us 1 character in mythology, in this case Greek mythology. Let's have 2 more. Mr. Adams.
Somebody was changed into a laurel.
That's right. Who was it?
Well, somebody's got to help me on that.
Mr. Kieran, can you tell us who was changed into a laurel and how and why?
I think it was a daughter of one of the river gods.
I don't know whether she was the daughter of a river god or not. I'm not familiar with the genealogy.
She was being chased, wasn't she, by Apollo?
Yes, that's a fair assumption in Greek mythology.
Yes. And her father was either Alpheus or... I think it was Alpheus.
You get around to the girls through the fathers, don't you, Mr. Kieran? Her name was Daphne. Daphne, and she was a nymph, and she succeeded in escaping from Apollo, and she was turned into a laurel tree. Do you believe that story?
Yes.
I think
implicitly.
You really do, eh?
Yes.
Folklore, I think. Name one more. Daphne we have, and Narcissus we have. We have to get one more.
Hyacinth.
Hyacinth. What's the story of Hyacinth?
He was a companion of, I believe it was Apollo, and he was wounded by a discus thrown by Apollo and died, and where he died, why Apollo changed him into the flower we call a hyacinth.
That's right. That's quite right. Now, gentlemen, that gives us three. There's another, Baucis and Philemon, the old couple who
yes,
was...
turned into ivy, I think. No, trees.
Into two trees.
That's
yes,
right.
That's right. Can you give the place names, Mr. E. Johnson wants to know, Mr. E. Johnson of Birmingham, from which the following words are derived? Muslin. Derived from what place name? Well, it's from...
Mousseline in France.
No, it's Mosul in North Iraq. I'm sorry, Mr. Adams. Sherry. Mr. Berg?
Jerez in Spain.
Jerez in Spain, and scallions. Mr. Winchell's scallions. It's Ashkelon, an ancient city on the coast of Palestine. Very well. Canada Dry announces that we have lost, let's see, $40 and 4 sets of Encyclopedia Britannica. Mr. Cross, will you take charge briefly, and then I'll be back with next week's lineup.
You know, it takes far more to make a good club soda than just carbonation. For example, sparkling Canada Dry water undergoes a series of scientifically controlled operations. First, the water is treated not once, but 3 times to ensure its purity, and then alkalized. Next comes the famous pinpoint process, the remarkable carbonation process that means millions of smaller bubbles. And these millions of tiny bubbles mean that the sparkling goodness will last for a good long time, at least 24 hours. And every step in the making of this fine club soda is carefully checked by graduate chemists whose job it is to guard the uniform goodness of all Canada Dry beverages. So always insist on sparkling Canada Dry water, the club soda that gives your favorite drink pure, tangy life and keeps it that way. Now here's Mr. Fadiman.
Mr. McAvoy, Mr. Berg, Canada Dry thanks you for joining us tonight. Next week, our 3 regular henchmen will be with us, Mr. Levant, Mr. Adams, and Mr. Kieran. Mr. Kieran, remember, it's February 10th. And to fill the quorum, we are going to be lucky enough to have with us one of America's most original humorists and caricaturists, Mr. James Thurber. Now, to all our listeners, we say, please send your questions along. If you have a stumper to stump our board of experts, let's have it. There are $5 in it for you if we use your question. And if your question stumps the experts, you get another $10 and a complete set of the most recent Encyclopedia Britannica. So you can win this new prize in addition to $15. Send your letters with questions and the correct answers to Information Please, 1 Pershing Square, New York City.
Remember, Canada Dry Ginger Ale and sparkling water now sell in the 12-ounce medium-sized bottle, 3 for 25 cents, plus...